What would you do if your dreams were on the brink of collapse, threatened by forces you hadn't anticipated? As the sun dipped below the jagged horizon, I stood on the porch of our small, isolated cabin nestled against the towering pines of Maple Hollow. The air carried a crisp chill, a whisper of the coming storm, and deep within my chest, a primal instinct stirred, sensing that something was amiss. I had stepped away from the sterile chaos of city life, hoping to carve out a peaceful existence for Emma and me, away from regulations, routine, and the incessant hum of urban existence. Emma was inside, likely preparing dinner, her laughter mingling with the crackling of the fireplace, crafting a perfect melody of home. We moved here seeking sanctuary, a cocoon woven with the threads of nature and solitude. I felt grounded here, surrounded by the scent of earth and pine needles. It was a kind of evening that offered peace, a promise of warmth and love, but the peace was superficial. Dark clouds loomed on the edges of the sky, their ominous shapes giving me pause. What could they be hiding? James! Emma's voice broke through my contemplative haze, tinged with urgency. My heart quickened as I turned to find her standing at the edge of the porch, her silhouette harsh against the dimming light. You need to see this. What is it? I asked, scrambling down the steps, a flutter of dread gnawing at my insides. Look! She pointed down our dirt path, leading away from the cabin toward the horizon. My stomach tightened when I spotted the three figures approaching, clad in crisp blue vests emblazoned with Maple Hollow A. They marched with unwelcome confidence, their purposeful strides cutting through the tranquility of the forest like a knife. "Mr. Calloway," barked the lead woman, a hint of authority lacing her voice, her clipboard held upright as if it were a badge of honor. "What do you want?" I asked bluntly, stepping protectively in front of Emma. My heart surged, anger mixing with confusion. These weren't visitors. They were intruders looking to disrupt the life we had painstakingly built. "We need to discuss your property," she declared, her expression betraying a sense of satisfaction. "It has been flagged for non-compliance with our aesthetic guidelines. The community has received multiple complaints regarding its appearance." My brows furrowed in disbelief. "Our home is not a museum. This cabin has belonged to my family for generations. You have no authority here." She stepped closer, a flicker of amusement dancing in her eyes, as if my defiance only fueled her fire. "You should know, Mr. Calloway, that we have the power to enforce our rules. There are strict consequences for noncompliance. Living in Maple Hollow means adhering to the community standards." The threat hung palpable in the air, and I felt the weight of it pressing down on me like a storm cloud. Emma's hand slipped into mine, grounding me amidst the mounting tension, her pulse racing, echoing my own uncertainty. Just then, a sharp knock erupted from inside the cabin, a sound that shattered the charged atmosphere. Emma and I exchanged panicked glances as the door swung open, revealing three more figures. They stepped into the twilight, their faces obscured in shadow but their intent unmistakably menacing. One of them brandished a vibro blade, its metallic edge glinting ominously in the dwindling light. "A little situation brewing here, James," the leader taunted, a grin splitting his face, revealing a glint of intimidation behind it. I felt a rush of adrenaline course through my veins as I looked back at the HOA representatives, my instinct screaming at me to protect Emma. "Get away from my wife." I bellowed, voice filled with authority, as I took an imposing step forward. The night descended all at once. The forest suddenly felt alive with the sounds of cicadas and the distant hooting of owls, heightened by the tension that gripped the air. "Let's not get hasty," the woman from the HOA interjected, eyeing the newcomers warily. The dynamic shifted, and I sensed that this was about more than just property disputes. It was a battle over control, one that had been simmering beneath the surface of tranquility. "James, should we call the police?" Emma whispered, though I could tell she hesitated, fearing escalation. Before I could respond, the group of intruders closed a distance, their leader stepping forward and lowering his voice to a threatening whisper. "You really think you can defy us? You don't belong here. Who do you think you are?" I shot back, my anger boiling over. "You don't get to come into our lives and dictate how we live." The man tightened his grip on the stun baton, the threat palpable. I could almost feel the weight of his judgment, the accusation hanging in the air. Yes, this cabin was different. Yes, it didn't conform to their standards. But it was ours, It was home. I stepped closer, creating a barrier between Emma and the marauding figures. You think you can scare me into submission? You're mistaken. This is my land, my family's land. I've fought for it before, and I will fight for it again if I must. The leader's sharp laugh sliced through the tension. You will find that we don't leave things to chance. We have the resources, the backing. Your little sanctuary out here is nothing to us, and it won't take long before we force you out. I clenched my jaw, every muscle in my body bracing for a confrontation. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and pine, the atmosphere crackling like a thick electric charge preceding a thunderstorm. Any moment now, there could be an explosion. Just as I prepared myself for whatever would come next, the trees around us shivered, the wind picking up and howling like a wild beast. Nature seemed to shift, eerily responding to our conflict, as shadows flickered in the corners of my vision. Then suddenly, another figure appeared, an older gentleman, rugged, with a wild mane of silver hair entwined with brambles, stepping from between the trees as if he had melded with the forest itself. "Henry!" I exclaimed, recognition flooding my senses. He was a local recluse, a hermit who had lived in the woods longer than anyone could count. His presence was unexpected, a wild card in this escalating confrontation. "Leave them be," he bellowed, his voice carrying the weight of authority profound yet unrefined. "You don't want to mess with those who belong to the earth." The intruders paused, uncertainty flickering on their faces. They had come for a fight, but Henry was known for a power that ran deeper than mere threats. His words, a potent warning, wrapped around the situation like a warning flare. The tension snapped like a taut wire, and I knew we had a split second to tip the balance. "We're not going anywhere. You have no power here," I asserted, my voice tinged with newfound strength. It was a defining moment. The forest, alive and ever-present, began to react to our words, rustling leaves and creaking branches echoing in agreement. This was our home, our territory, and we would stand our ground together. Suddenly, the lead woman turned. Her expression hardened. "This isn't over, James Calloway. You will hear from us, and when you do, remember this moment." With that, they retreated, the weight of their threat lingering in the air like a ghostly echo. When they finally vanished down the path, I felt a wave of relief wash over me, though the adrenaline pulsed energetically through my body. Emma, still trembling at my side, whispered, "What just happened? Are they really gone?" I turned to her, breathing heavily. "They'll be back." My thunderous heartbeat echoed in my ears. "But we'll be ready." Henry looked on, a knowing glint in his eye. "They think they own this land, but it belongs to those who respect it. You've got the heart to keep it," he said. "But you'll need to prepare. They're not finished." Emotions coursed through me like a raging river. Fear, courage, and a fiery determination to protect the life we'd built. There was no hiding behind walls anymore. We were part of a larger battle, one that demanded strength and unity beneath the shadow of the trees. "What do we do now?" Emma asked, her voice steadier, but uncertainty lingered in her eyes. "Now," I said, glancing at the looming darkness as I welcomed the storm, "we prepare for war." Little did we know, the fight for our home would summon unknown allies and force us to confront forces we never expected. The story was just beginning. The forest, alive and vibrant, was our witness. The world outside raged with furious rain and wind, but in that moment, I knew we would not cower. We would prepare to fight, and we would fight together, an unyielding force against whatever darkness approached us from the shadows. "James," Emma's voice quivered as we huddled together, her eyes searching mine for courage. "What if they really do come? What do we do?" "First, we must gather as many allies as possible," I said, frantically scanning the living room as if a solution would jump out at me from the shadows. "Henry, do you know anyone who might help?" "I know a few folks who wouldn't like the prospect of losing their homes," he said, his voice gravelly but determined. "But they'll need convincing. Many are being tricked into thinking the HOA is looking out for their interests. We need proof of the threat they pose." "Let me grab my laptop," Emma said, rushing towards a small desk tucked in the corner of the room. "I can document everything, evidence of their behavior, instances of intimidation. We need to show our neighbors exactly what we're facing." Nodding, I grabbed the flashlight we kept by the door and adjusted it to shine out toward the dense woods. Shadows danced on the walls, and the wind howled as if echoing the fear clawing at my insides. Henry, where do we go from here? First, we need to alert the council members who aren't in league with the HOA, he suggested, moving with palpable energy. There's a resistance forming. People who believe that this land belongs to the community, not to corporate interests. I'll call a few of them while Emma pulls up our evidence. Let's hope that voice of reason still exists, I muttered, trying to shove aside the sense of dread creeping in. Emma hunched over the laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. I found some old meeting minutes, she called out, excitement igniting her voice. This schedule shows they've been having secret meetings to discuss developments in Maple Hollow. Look at these entries. They contradict everything they've told the community. As she read aloud, I watched her enthusiasm reignite the hope inside me. This is great. We can pass this around. It'll show the manipulation surrounding this whole situation. The brightness of the screen illuminated her face, reflecting both fear and determined resolve. For a moment, the creeping storm outside faded into the background, leaving only the fire's warmth and that flickering light. Then, without warning, another loud thud jolted the cabin. Louder this time, it echoed through the structure, making the walls rattle. Did you hear that? Emma's eyes widened, panic rising in her voice. Before I could respond, Henry was at the window, peering through the curtain. They are here, he said, voice lowered but steady. They've sent in forces. They think they can intimidate us into submission. What do we do? I asked, my heart racing as adrenaline kicked in. I needed to filter our options. Stand strong. We can't show them fear. Time is in our hands, he urged, shifting the curtain slightly aside to get a better view. If we confront them now, we can catch them off guard. Catch them off guard? Emma echoed, her voice wavering. You want to confront them? They need to know they can't just walk in here and dictate our lives. We can hold the line until we gather support, I asserted, feeling an unfamiliar surge of confidence mixed with trepidation. I glanced toward the door, knowing that once it opened, there was no turning back. We need to keep them from coming inside, whatever it takes. Emma stood tall beside me, determination replacing doubt in her eyes. You're right. If we let them in, we lose our control. We can't show weakness. A thunderous crash sounded outside, and I turned to see shadows moving in the pouring rain, the silhouettes of people advancing toward our cabin. It's now or never. I breathed, gripping the flashlight tightly, feeling its weight as if it could somehow ground me. Henry nodded, stepping back to allow us a quick glimpse of what was happening outside. The porch was crowded with dark figures, some holding flashlights of their own, their voices raised in heated conversation. Let's be smart about this, Henry cautioned. We can't fight them if we're outnumbered. Use the element of surprise. I turned back to the rest of the room, scanning for anything that could give us an edge. Emma, do you have anything we can use to protect ourselves? Something to slow them down. I have a fire extinguisher under the kitchen sink, she said quickly, her face pale but resolve burning in her eyes. It may not be much, but it could give us time to escape if it comes to that. Perfect. I gestured to Henry. Get outside and make some noise to divert their attention. Emma and I will wait for your signal before we join you. Henry slipped towards the door, muttering under his breath. You have to trust me. Stay ready. After he stepped outside, the stillness in the cabin heightened tension. The storm's fury fell hard against the roof as Emma and I exchanged anxious glances. Finally, a sudden shout erupted from outside, a single voice shouting, Calloway, step out and face us. My heart raced as I clenched the flashlight tighter, adrenaline coursing through me. Here we go. In that moment, Henry's shout broke through the chaos. You think you can intimidate us? You don't know who you're dealing with. I leaned closer to Emma, whispering fiercely, We don't show them fear. We don't back down. The confrontation outside escalated. I could hear the anger rising. Our adversaries were growing frustrated, their voices overlapping in the heavy rain. I could almost feel their unease drifting in the air as they realized we weren't just going to roll over. Suddenly, the door burst open, and Henry rushed back inside, his eyes wide with urgency. They are trying to break through. We need to disrupt their plan. What does that mean? Emma asked, alarmed. Buy us time. Make it look like we're retreating, he urged. That might stall them long enough for the neighbors to hear. Without hesitation, Emma tossed a fire extinguisher toward me, her expression resolute. You heard him. Now's our chance. I nodded, adrenaline stoking the fire in me as I burst for the door. I swung it wide open, thrusting the flashlight ahead into the storm, catching a glimpse of the intruders' faces, a mix of anger and surprise. We won't back down, I yelled, shaking the flashlight defiantly, feeling the chaos swirling all around me. The enforcers hesitated, giving me the perfect opportunity. For a moment, time collapsed, and their confidence wavered amidst the thunderous growl of the storm. What's the matter? Afraid of a real fight? Emma shouted from behind me, her voice unexpectedly strong. We'll take you all on. Henry shouted, brandishing a branch from the ground, the embodiment of defiance against the menacing figures ahead. The enforcers exchanged uncertain glances, their bravado cracking like the thunder roaring overhead. Their hesitation was all we needed. We took one step forward, then another, the three of us forming a barrier against whatever dark tide threatened our lives and our home. As the rain poured, it felt like nature itself joined our fight, echoing our determination. We were fighting not just for ourselves, but for every soul in Maple Hollow who had ever endured a threat to their sanctuary. And in that moment, I knew we would erupt in unity, taking the first step toward reclaiming what was rightfully ours. The storm outside was fierce, but our resolve burned brighter than any tempest. As the rain poured down, both the storm and our courage swelled around us, a blend of nature's fury and our fierce determination to protect our home. The enforcers hesitated, casting uneasy glances at each other, unsure of how to respond to our defiance. Push them. They are just bluffing, one of the enforcers barked, but there was a quiver in his voice that suggested we were striking a nerve. Henry raised a branch higher, his posture like a shield protecting us from the threat just beyond the door. If you want to fight, you will get one, he shouted, his voice steady and unyielding. Do you hear that? I spun the flashlight in circles, the beam flickering over their faces, amplifying their uncertainty. We stand together, and we won't let you take what's ours. It felt as though the very ground rumbled beneath us, echoing the tension in the air. For every moment we held our ground, doubt dripped from their ranks like rain off our roof. This showdown was about more than land. It was about hearts and hope. Just then, Emma shouted, "Look," and pointed over our shoulders. A glimmer of light flickered through the downpour, and I furrowed my brow, straining to see. Henry narrowed his eyes, following her gaze. "What is that?" "Neighbors," Emma yelled, her voice ringing with hope. They must have seen what's happening. The enforcers turned, confused. This was their moment of uncertainty. The headlights of our allies' cars sliced through the rain and darkness, illuminating the faces of many of our friends and neighbors who stood determined at the edge of the clearing, ready for the fight. Our community was rising. Together, we are stronger than you. I shouted over the storm, meeting the uncertain glances of the enforcers head-on. Their bravado faltered as they stared back, apprehensively processing the overwhelming turn of events. Then, without warning, a low rumbling sound echoed through the air, not thunder, but something far more ominous. The earth shook slightly, and I felt a wave of unease sweep through me. The enforcers shared a confused look. "Do you feel that?" one of them asked, glancing nervously at the trees surrounding us, their branches bending dangerously under the weight of the storm. "Yes," Henry replied, brow furrowed. "What is causing it?" The ground shook again, and I instinctively took a step back, the flashlight slipping from my grasp. Then, through the relentless rain, an unmistakable sound emerged, a distant, low growl reverberating through the air and rumbling through my bones. "What is that?" Someone from the group of enforcers blurted, their fear visible now. "It can't be," murmured another, and their voices trembled in disbelief. Suddenly, emerging from the depths of the woods, a massive figure broke through the tree line, a huge bear, wild and formidable, lumbering forward as though it sensed our disruption and was drawn to the commotion like a specter unleashed from its ancient realm. Its eyes glowed eerily in the darkness, fierce and protective. "Back! Retreat!" the lead enforcer yelled, panic slicing through his voice as he stumbled backward. The once confident stance of the enforcers crumbled as they scrambled to flee from both the bear and our collective force. This twist felt like fate's intervention, nature's beast standing as our guardian against the encroaching darkness. Just as our neighbors stepped cautiously forward, emboldened by the sight, the bear stood tall, shaking off the rain as it blocked the path to our cabin. "Is this really happening?" Emma exclaimed, her voice a mix of awe and disbelief. "This can't just be luck." "Yes, it can," I whispered, barely comprehending the bizarre scene unfolding before us. The enforcers toned, their eyes wide with fright, abandoning their arrogant postures as the mighty creature came closer, roaring with authority. "Together!" I yelled, feeling my own courage swell, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. "We're not going to let fear take our home. Now is our moment. Take a stand with me." With a unanimous shout, our neighbors charged forward with renewed strength, emboldened by the extraordinary sight of the bear and our united front. The enforcers were now in full retreat, scrambling into the shadows, their footfalls drowned out by the ferocity of the storm. They had underestimated us, and the power of nature was on our side. The bear stood stalwart, as if sensing the balance between our resolve and the impending threat, its presence a primal reminder that we were grounded in something much more significant than ourselves. As the last of the enforcers disappeared into the darkness, a calm replaced the chaos. Emma turned to Henry and me, her breath shaky but filled with exhilaration. "Did we really?" "Yes," I replied, feeling a sense of triumph wash over me. "We did. We held our ground." But then my attention shifted back to the bear, which was now pulling away from the cabin as if gesturing to me with its massive, powerful frame. It paused briefly, offering an almost knowing glance before it slipped back into the storm, disappearing into the depths of the woods, leaving us in shocked silence. What had just happened felt surreal, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that something greater had stirred in that moment, an instinctive connection with the land itself, a reminder that we were guardians of something precious. As the rain began to subside and the horizon showed signs of dawn breaking, the lingering tension evaporated into a sense of empowerment. "We need to quantify this," I breathed, looking at Emma and Henry, my mind racing. "This fight is a beginning. We can document everything, the bear's presence. It might turn this from just a battle for land into a fight for preservation." Emma's eyes widened with realization. "If the HOA thinks they can use intimidation against us, we'll show them they are up against nature in its purest form. We'll present this to the whole community, the beauty that we stand to lose." As dawn's first light crested over the horizon, illuminating our surroundings, I felt the weight of the night's event sink in. This was more than just a fight for the land. It was a call to action, awakening every sense of community spirit and collaboration. But as we stood amidst the remnants of what had just happened, I could still hear the distant echo of the bear's growl resonating in my mind, a powerful reminder that our fight was only just beginning. Together, we would not simply protect our home. We would defend the very essence of the land, stirring a movement that would resonate far beyond our small town. With our allies gathered, invigorated by the mysterious blessings of nature, we would forge ahead, and my heart swelled with certainty this was a battle for our past, present, and future, and it would be a battle that no one would ever forget.